Welcome to Trading Tunes, where songwriters share stories, inspiration, and of course, their music. I'm Julie Finn, songwriter, guitarist, educator, and performer, and in this series, I sit down with fellow artists to talk shop, trade tunes, and explore the magic of songwriting. For episode 2, I got to hang with Kat Reinhert. She is a genre-defying songwriter, vocalist, multi-instrumentalist, and bandleader. She has released 5 independently produced albums and collaborated with artists like Anat Ford, Joe Lowry, Ross Pedersen, Michael Leonhardt, Josh Logan, Stephen Litt, and David Cook. Her songwriting extends to Sesame Street, podcast themes, and other artists. Beyond performing, Kat is a prolific author with works including Songwriting for Music Educators, Releasing Music, A Guide for Educators, Mentors and Artists, Fall 2025, and Action-Based Approaches in Popular Music Education, plus an upcoming release with Oxford University Press. She holds a doctorate in popular music education and is a full professor of songwriting at Berklee College of Music. Splitting her time between New York City and Boston, Reinhert remains dedicated to her own artistry, constantly creating, collaborating, and pushing musical boundaries. Thank you for joining us. This is Trading Tunes, where I invite my most favorite songwriters to my house. Mine, I say mine, but it's actually mine and John Finn's house, and our beautiful barn, to share music, and I want to get all the tips, what makes you amazing.
Fabulous.
So this is Kat. I'm going to have her introduce herself and talk a little bit about your journey. What led you to music?
Oh, you want the short version?
No.
No.
Well,
all right. All right. I'm Kat Reinhert, and my journey into music, I actually think it was kind of an accident, to be honest. I actually, when I was a kid, always wanted to be a graphic designer for Disney. I wanted to be an animator for Disney. That was my dream when I was a kid. I would draw all the time at home. I even figured out how, so Disney has these things like called lithographs, where and I figured out how to make them with like transfer paper and like coloring the outside and then painting the back, and like,
so you paint the background and then you're able to make your own.
And I would like draw Disney characters and like gave them as gifts.
Beautiful.
It was really fun. But when it came time to go to college, I'd only ever taken one art class, and I was currently in it. I took it my last semester of like high school.
Oh,
and
wow.
So
that doesn't usually happen. You just worked on it on your own.
I just did it on my own. I grew up in a really small town in Wisconsin with like, when I was living there, it had 4,444 people and 1 stoplight.
Okay.
So, and nobody ever left. I mean, this is like, I was born in 1976. So like, this is way before the internet. You don't, like, if you needed to know something, you had to go to the library and look it up in the Dewey Decimal System, or like the microfiche. I bet you remember that.
Yes,
like,
I was just talking to John.
Oh my God, like so much more difficult to like have access to the world, right?
So you can't look up in the yellow pages how to be a Disney animator.
Right, I had no idea. And so colleges were like, I looked at colleges that I thought would, want to do something like that, but the admissions department, also in a little town, in a small thing, most of the people in the town are going to be farmers, business. They have no idea what to do with a human like me, right?
Person.
They don't know what to do. And so I figured it out on my own. I applied to a few different schools, and the one I got into was Lawrence University, which is in Appleton, Wisconsin.
Okay.
And I got in as a classical voice major. I've never sung a classical song. I don't know what classical singing is. I've never taken a voice lesson.
Did you audition?
I did.
How did you do that?
Well, I was in choir. So I played piano since I was 8.
Okay.
And like music was always around my house. My dad had considered being a jazz pianist and became a neurologist. But he always played piano, and like, there were jazz records on in our house, and like he tried to get me to listen to them, and I was like, Dad, that music is weird. Because
so you just naturally felt like music is just a part of everybody's life, and it's not really.
Yeah, and like you could
either
in my town you could either sing or you couldn't. There was no like learning how to sing, right?
Okay.
It was like you either were great or you sucked, and
you were the good one. You were in the choir.
No, in hindsight, it was not that great, but
compared to the other kids who were
maybe.
auditioning at the school.
But so I got into this program. It was a classical voice program, and my first voice lesson at like 18, I walk into the room, and she's this really amazing human, and we have a good relationship. But like my first lesson, she's like, "Can you do this?" And I was like, and I literally spit all over, and she was like, "Goodbye. I'll see you when you can figure that out."
Really?
And that was,
You
it was a
got fired
10-minute voice lesson. Yeah.
from your first lesson?
I did. And so I walked all over campus that first week going, like, I was just like, how do you make this sound? Because there was no instruction. It was just like, go figure this out.
Wow.
And I
She's
came
tough.
back the following week and I was like, and I could sing like little things. And
So she probably was impressed that you didn't
I think
just quit.
she was like impressed that I didn't quit.
Yeah. Good
And
for you.
the other seminal moment during that time there was I was also taking piano lessons, and I was taking 1-credit piano lessons because I was a voice major, but I'd always played piano, and I was like, well, I can take piano lessons, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the woman who I was teaching was this very vivacious Russian. She was a little scary, in my head, intimidating, because she was just larger than life, and like she was so amazing. And I mean, although I'd been playing piano since I was 8, I had no idea what practice actually looked like. Because again, like small town,
Right.
nobody thinks you're going
You
to do
just hung
anything
out
other
playing
than
music
just
at
like, yeah. And so I think first or second week, she had asked me, I was learning this like Debussy piece, which was this, it's called Deux Arabesque. And it's like this da 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 da, and it's got this like 2 against 3 and 3 against 4 thing going on in your different hands, and it's actually very hard. And I practiced maybe an hour total on the thing, so I was like, that's enough, like. And I walked into my lesson, and she was like, how dare you not practice enough to like come into this studio and disrespect me. And I was just like, I mean, I just started crying, and part of me was angry, and the other part of me was like, she's so right, Kat. You know she's right. But I had never had anyone tell me what I was like, how that was supposed to work, if that makes sense.
No.
And so I got out of her office and I sat down in the hallway, and I just sobbed probably for half an hour, like just being like mortified, embarrassed. Like there's a thing in me about like, I like to please people, but also like, I don't like to not do well in things. Right. And this is a very long story. You can cut this.
I'm not going to cut any of it.
Anyway, so, but that forced me to understand what practice was. Right. And I was like, okay, so I'm going to practice like an hour a day on this thing, because that to me was like epically huge amount of time. And so I started to spend an hour a day working on this piano thing, and the lesson was every other week. And for 2 weeks, I practiced this thing for an hour a day. I had no idea what I was doing. It was so hard. And I came back and I could play the first page. I could play it. It was slow, but I knew it was right. And she looked at me and she was like, you practiced. And I was like, well, you got mad at me. And like from then on, our lessons were great, because I figured out
you proved yourself.
She didn't need me to be like concert pianist. She just wanted me to put like care, right?
Effort into it.
And so at like 19 or whatever, I was 18, I don't remember. My brain was like, well, Kat, you're spending an hour practicing piano, but you're a voice major.
Time to kick it in gear.
So that meant that I should practice 2 hours on voice, right? And 1 hour on piano. Okay. In my head.
And that's a routine.
So then I started practicing 3 hours a day. And I would wake up at 6 and I would walk over to the studios from my dorm, and I would be there by 6:30, and I would practice for 3 hours until I would go eat and then go to my classes.
Okay.
And I was studying classical voice, but I really didn't like it. It was like, I always wanted to do something different. It's just not fun. And there was a jazz person there. And And so I started taking jazz lessons with him, and like alongside these other things. And they had this thing where you could make your own major, essentially, kind of design your own major. And I was like, well, I'm going to design one in jazz and classical voice, like both voices, right?
That's a lot of work.
Well, it's also a lot of work for someone who's never had a voice lesson before and like has never delved into either one of these fields.
But it seemed like a good idea.
It seemed like a great idea, but I failed both of my juries.
Really?
Yeah. And that was sort of like, to me, it was a sign like it wasn't the right place to be, because it seemed like an impossible task, even though I didn't understand.
Practicing 3 hours a day is a lot.
It is, but it was also like, in hindsight, having taught voice lessons now for 30 years, like that's a massive ask for someone alone, let alone someone who has never delved into these two areas of things. And to ask them to do 3 songs in one and turn around immediately do 3 songs in another was a ridiculous ask. And like,
because they're not going to be simple pieces.
No, they weren't, and they were hard, and I was being asked to improvise, and you have to change the entire like way that your voice works in order to make different kinds of.
And jazz.
They're totally different things. They require completely different things, like mechanism, like not the mechanism thing, but the configuration of all the things inside is different, right? And so
it's like gymnastics, right?
Oh my gosh, yes. And so I didn't. That was how I got into music, and it was like I was just stubborn. No, I loved it. I was stubborn, and I was like, okay, I'm going to figure this out. And so then I transferred to Manhattan School of Music into jazz, and like really like just dove into an art form that I had never thought about doing. I never considered that. Like,
did you listen to jazz voice with your dad or anything?
I mean, a little bit of jazz with my dad. No, it was mostly Dave Brubeck, because that was his thing. And so like I had not listened to music. I didn't know how to listen to music. I sat in like, theory class or like history classes, and they were like, who's playing on this record? I'm like, there's a trumpet player, a saxophone player, and a drummer. How are you supposed to tell? But because no one had ever helped. Like that wasn't my thing, right? I wanted to be an animator for Disney. Like that was
an amazing story.
Oh my God!
You
so
must have felt like you were in the wrong. The peg in the hole. The
yeah,
hole.
1,000%, and it drove me to practice. Right, so I established this practice routine. So in Manhattan, I lived on 101st Street, and the school is on 121st Street, and I was poor, and I walked.
You could sing the whole time.
No, but I would get up at 5:30 and I would walk to the school, because the school doors opened at 6, and that's when everybody lined up to practice rooms.
Okay, it's really hard to get in them.
It was hard, and they didn't have like sign-up sheets or anything like that, because it's like 1996.
First come, first serve.
Yeah, and it was all the piano majors, right?
Oh, no.
And so I'm in line with all the piano majors, because that's where you can get the good pianos. And I would come in, and again, 6 to 9, classes started at 9, so I would sit there and like practice. And practice was like learning scales, understanding theory, trying to figure out how to play stuff on the piano that I didn't understand, try to hear like anything, because ear training just did not make any sense to me. I was like, I don't get any of this. Like, and I knew that I sucked. And so
you knew it?
I knew it. And I was like, I need to fix this.
But you made it into the school. I mean, that's like...
I did, but the woman who auditioned me was like, you only made it in the school because of me. Otherwise, you never would have made it. And so
she saw something.
Yeah, but I carried that kind of thing around like I didn't belong.
Oh, what a shame.
But that's also
held you back, but it may have pushed you harder.
I think it pushed me, but I don't know if it was good, but all of this is like accidents. Like it's fate or something like that.
But maybe. You never would have changed it.
Not at this point. No. Like, I mean, there's still a part of me that's like, I wonder, but I remember the first time I wrote a song, right? And I was always like, in hindsight, like I was always taking like jazz solos and like trying to put lyrics to them, or taking jazz heads that had no lyrics and like writing lyrics to them. Beautiful. Like I was always trying to do that, but there was no one, again, like this is pre-internet really. So
and jazz people not necessarily going to teach you songwriting skills.
Absolutely not. I didn't even know that you could do it. I mean, it didn't occur to me that these songs were written by someone. Like, that wasn't something that I could do. And the first song I wrote, I brought into my ensemble because the trumpet player had brought in like an original
Okay,
song.
all right.
And he was like, yeah, we can't do that. And I was like, why not? He's like, you have to sing other people's music. That's your job. And
There's different standards for singers.
yeah, at that time there was a different standard. That now, luckily, it's changed a lot. But yeah, and so that was really again, I'm stubborn, so I'm like, you tell me not to do it, and then I'm just gonna go like harder
Yeah.
into it. And so, fast forward 30 years, and I am a songwriter, and that's what I love doing more than anything else. I got 2 degrees in jazz and a PhD in music education along the way, but always like making music, creating, making things. My first album even has 10 tunes on it, and you can't find it, sorry, because it's all analog. But
CD.
my
Record.
mom has copies. But it has 5 tunes on it that I wrote, and others that I put lyrics to.
Okay.
And it was just every record after that was like pretty much all original.
I'm seeing the ties together from
Yeah.
being an animator and creating art, and then in your music journey, you just are pulling that along with you, right?
Thanks.
They're all
Yeah, I guess so.
interconnected.
Yeah. So
I love that.
it's a short, long story. It's a long story.
It's a fascinating story. I'm amazed. And it kind of brings me into this next question. You blend jazz, pop, and singer-songwriter styles so seamlessly. How do you approach genre when you're writing a song?
I don't, actually. I think when I first started writing, one of the things I thought a lot about was I was playing with these like really heavy jazz musicians. And I was like, they're not going to want to play with me if I don't write cool, hip, hard music, right?
Just a 1-4-5 is going to be like, there's no 2-5. What the hell?
Right. And you get schooled in jazz that like it has to be complicated in order to be good, right? And so my first record is very jazz, even though like it's all original. It's still like, it's like swingy and like there are more complex harmonies in it. As I started to dig more into songwriting, I've always been a fan of Joni Mitchell, even when I was like really young or like in Manhattan School of Music. I always loved her stuff. And I actually recently wrote a song about that because I used to put her on with a Walkman, and I would put headphones on and I would sleep with her in my head, hoping that she would like wear off on me. Yeah, that's actually a line in my song. So I listened to a lot of that, and then especially over the last 10 years, all of the students that I work with are making pop, hyper pop, pop. I'm teaching pop, right? And I'm listening to a lot more pop. And so I think all of those things, when I sit down to write, kind of just, I'm not really thinking about them, but they're getting like infused into what I'm making subconsciously, just because like I've listened to this or I've heard that, and all the music that I'm listening to, especially during the academic year too, is like, I did the math, it's like 100 songs a week, right? From students that are like on a cutting edge of things that are happening or trying to do things. And so all of that's in my head when I sit down to write. And yeah, especially also when I started picking up the guitar, things got a little more simple harmonically, because when I sit at the piano, my hands just naturally, I know how to play the minor 7 flat 5s and all the fancy extensions, and like my hands just kind of like go to those places. Whereas on guitar, I don't know where those are necessarily, and like I'm just using my ear a lot more because I don't always know what I'm playing, which has been liberating.
And it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Do you remember a moment when you felt like you really found your voice as an artist, and what led you there?
Oh, I love that question. I'm still kind of figuring that out, I think. And I don't know, I think any good artist is always trying to find their voice. And that is a loaded question in ways, because as you change, and as you get older, your voice changes too, right? But also what you want to sing about changes, which is a different way of thinking about your voice, right? Having something to say. Um, but I think two things. One, in about 2015, I went off birth control pills and something weird happened and I couldn't figure it out. And I went to, yeah, I got scoped and they're like, nothing is there. And I saw different people and they're like, I don't know, Kat, and worked on it and it got a little better. But it never really went away. And then
Was it just scratchiness or
no, there was a skip like in between like B flat, B and C. Like I just had this like weird thing where like I could either sing it loud or I could sing it in a head register, but soft or like moving through it. It was just like weird, right? And it's not that I couldn't sing. I mean, I put out records and like did things, but it just didn't feel like the voice that I knew had gone away, right? And it never really came back.
Interesting.
But I found a voice teacher in New York who's also a speech language pathologist. And I've been working with her now for 2 years. And I can do things with my voice that I've never been able to do. Like the thing went away.
Okay.
And she's not sure what it was. She thinks maybe a little bit of extra tension somewhere or just like unbalanced, something that sort of like got more unbalanced. And I don't know.
Hormones are crazy things.
They're so
But
crazy.
also our voice, when you think of, you have to make corrections and you can't see what you're doing. And
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. And then I teach voice. And so that was like a whole thing of like, well, should I be teaching because this thing is going wrong? And like, you have this like moment, you know.
I must be perfect when I'm teaching.
Right. Exactly. And nothing can be like amiss.
Nothing.
So yeah, I mean, I think we're all just finding it and we hope we just keep doing that, I think.
Okay. So you're evolving.
Yeah.
A work in progress. Okay. So you talked a little bit about Joni Mitchell, but what other artists or albums were foundational for you early on? And then what are you listening to now? Besides
so
students?
different. Well, during this academic year, I rarely listen to anything new. Just because it's so much new that like I don't want to, right? I'm like, I want my old records. Let's see. I listened to Conversations with Myself, which is a Bill Evans record where he's like doubling himself on piano and tripling, like so he's playing with himself. Overdubbing. That was one of my favorite records. Miles Davis, Kind of Blue. Joni. And then it moves into like John Mayer, Crosby, Stills and Nash, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, Jackson Browne, James Taylor, Carole King, like that kind of era of songwriters. And then it moved into Sarah Bareilles, Brandi Carlile, one of my absolute favorites. Like now, I really like Chappell Roan, Lizzie McAlpine, just really smart. I've started to get into Gracie Abrams. I'm kind of digging some of the stuff that she's been putting out. Sia, like I just like the smart songwriters who are like fun. Dua Lipa, Olivia Rodrigo, like all of these kind of.
They all seem to be pushing boundaries.
A little bit, yeah. And so that's really fun. Oh, and Maren Morris. I love her lyricism. It's just smart. So yeah, like that's kind of where I'm at. And anything that a student's like, Kat, you need to listen to this.
I do too.
So
I have a master list of everything that they suggest.
Exactly.
In classes and things. So it's inspiring. When you collaborate with others, whether it's in jazz or pop, what do you look for in a musical partner?
Are they fun? Are they like a good hang? I think
that's huge.
Yeah,
that's
I mean,
the big three.
Do I want to hang out with them? And I think number 2 is, are they respecting what I'm doing? Mm-hmm. I've worked with people who haven't, and while they might be great, it's not good, and it doesn't evoke trust. And I think I need to trust the people that I'm working with. I've been really lucky to work with the same people for almost 10 years now. And so when I bring music to them, like I just trust that like what they're going to play, it's going to work, and if it's not working, they also trust me enough to know that I'm going to say like, hey, that's cool, but it's not what I want. Now that you've played that, I want X, and you played Z, so There's a mutual respect and trust, I think, that I really love. So, yeah.
Beautiful. Do you tend to write lyrics first or music? And does it change depending on the project?
It depends.
Always.
It depends on the day. It depends on where I'm at.
If you're on the subway.
Yeah, exactly. If that's where I get inspiration,
Yeah.
I watched Erin's episode that you did with her, and she was talking about the Song a Day challenge that
Yes.
my co-business owner and I run every year. And so every year for the last 4 years, I have written a song a day in January. Right. And so it depends. The first 2 years I did it, I actually on December 31st wrote down 31 prompts, and I had my husband help me a little bit, and I sourced some from social media and put them into a little bag, and like every day I would just pull out a card, and that was the prompt,
Okay.
And some of them were music first, some of them were DAW first, some of them were lyrics first.
So it was on the prompt how to do it. Oh, okay, good. Because then you're practicing all.
Yeah, so I think too, like as a professor of songwriting, like I think it's really important for me to know what it's like to write in all these different things. My definite like go-to is I start with some sort of groove, and then I'm looking for the idea that goes with whatever groove I've sort of laid down. Like that's generally the most common way I will start a song. Although it could be lyrics first. I mean, it just depends.
It just depends. Yeah, some people have a preference.
Yeah, I think my preference is like groove, and then like I find an idea, and the lyrics kind of like come, and then rewrites.
Do you find your ideas are just they blossom really quickly, or do you have to fight with them?
It depends on the idea. Okay. I've been fighting with a song for now 2.5 years.
I have a few of those.
Yeah.
It's like, when are you going to come out?
Yeah. I mean, it's out, but like the chorus isn't right, and it's just not landing like the way I want it to land. And so I've been taking a break from it because it was making me angry. So
we need to definitely put those aside for a little bit. But then with time, they come together.
Hopefully.
All right. So, this is a good one. You've worked in both improvisation and structured songwriting. How do those two approaches inform each other in your work?
Ooh. I think that the skills that I gained working as a jazz musician, like the improvisatory skills, I never liked scatting. Like it was never my thing, but you had to be able to do it. And I think when I'm creating melodies, there's not a fear. I've like moved past that, like, fear.
It's not going to hold you back.
No, I'm just like, oh, that wasn't the greatest melody. Let me try again. Kind of like if you're scatting and practicing, you're like, oh, that wasn't the greatest solo. You let go of it because it's just a moment in time. And I think when I'm trying to craft something, that ability to just let go of the things that, kind of aren't working and just move on without thinking, oh God, I suck or blah, blah, blah. Like you're going to have bad solos,
Right.
just like your melodies might not work. I think that, and then the intentionality of, I think when I was working with other people's music, which I don't do kind of almost anymore at all. But when I was working with other people's music, I was always thinking about, well, how do I make this mine, right? So I have one full album of covers that I never actually put out fully. Like there are 3 tunes from it that are out, and the rest of them I never released. But I remember distinctly I was making that record and my record Spark at the same time, and Spark is all original. And I was thinking so intently about how I was arranging all of these other people's tunes, and I wasn't thinking about that for my own tunes. And it was like, oh, I need to think about that for my own music too. And I need to think about how I'm arranging this and what's going to play on this and who's going to play on this and where, and like where are the solos, and not just the song and not just saying, oh, play. It's like, no, I want this vibe, and this is the intention of the song, and this is what it means. And I don't know that all bands need like the entire lyric set in front of them. They're usually paying more attention to like what's happening, but they do need an idea of what the overarching theme is, so they know like, well, what am I playing to? Like, what's the prosody of what they're playing, right? So
what's the point? Let's talk about education and performance.
Cool.
You bring a lot of emotional nuance to your performances. I've had a chance to see you now a couple times. So how do you prepare to deliver that kind of vulnerability live or in the studio?
Oh, I practice it.
Yeah, it's intentional.
It is. I at about that same time when I was like doing the cover record, it's called Home Movie and Spark, there was this aha moment of like, oh, I just assumed that I knew how to sing these because I wrote them, right? And I didn't actually. I actually needed to figure out like where are the louds, where are the softs, like how do I want to be breathy here, and do I want like how do I want to do this? And it got me thinking about this idea of song mapping, which is actually something I teach in a class I have at Berkeley, where I talk about all these different things that you can think about in a song, and you have to go. The exercise is you take a lyric sheet and you print it out double spaced, and you take colors or things, and you literally line by line, what emotion do you want this line to evoke? How does that emotion translate into what you're singing? How does it translate into what you're playing? What kind of sound do you want out of your voice? Is it a breathy sound? Is it a head register? Is it chest register? What volume, 1 to 10? Like, and you map out not just like sections, but also individual lines within the section, where those line up. And
It's important too.
it is. And what I found is that when I started to do that, and I talked about this with my students too, is like once you do this on a few tunes, it starts to become something that you think about after you've written the song and you're starting to work it up to performance, right? Because I don't know, I tend to write things I can't play.
So, I have a habit of doing that too.
Yeah, because then it helps you be a better musician, right? Like, because
we get the idea in my mind, and then trying to execute.
And then you have to execute it, but that drives me to be stronger on what I'm doing because I'm stretching myself, because I'm not playing other people's music to stretch myself. I'm only doing my own. And so how do I continue to improve, right?
Because we don't want to write the same song over and over.
Absolutely not. So, yeah.
So what is your own personal favorite song that you perform?
Oh, that I've written or that I've performed?
You've written.
Man, that's tricky.
I know they all have a little piece of our heart.
I know. They totally do. And the newer ones always seem to be like, oh, that's the one that's my favorite. No, I think I have a song called Runnin', and it's out. And there's something about that song that when I sing it, I imagine I'm at Red Rocks and like everybody's singing along, and just this like, it feels anthemic, and it feels like some kind of thing that could take me somewhere else. I don't know. It feels good to sing.
Yeah. And so even if you're in a small intimate space, you just have this Red Rocks vibe.
Yeah.
When you're practicing it or playing it.
Totally.
I love that. You got to bring that with you. Okay. As an educator, what's something you wish every young songwriter or vocalist would embrace earlier in their journey?
Oh, letting go of the fear of suck.
Okay.
You know, I think the faster that you can let go of fear, letting go that it has to be good in order for you to do it. Like, you need to finish songs. Like, I have so many people that I work with, and they're like, I was like, well, how many songs have you written? They're like, well, like parts of like 20. And I'm like, well, how many have you finished? And they're like, 1. I'm like, why haven't you finished them? And the answer is inevitably because I don't think they're going to be good. And I'm like, how do you know they're not going to be good? You haven't finished them. So then if you haven't finished it, you can't know what needs to get fixed. It's like, if you haven't built the house, you don't know that your roof is uneven. Right. And you don't know that you need to fix that. Right.
And they're probably so close. I mean, just
yes,
write another verse.
Exactly.
It's like got the first verse.
I know you have a verse and a chorus, and like all you need is another verse and maybe a bridge or an instrument. Like, you're so close to there, you know. So I really wish that people would let go of it, needing to be good, and like the fear that it has to be. You know, I'm like, I have written, I mean, on average 2 to 3 songs a week. You know, like, when I'm not really working on other projects or things like that, like that's, and most of them will never, ever see the light of day. But by writing those songs, then you know when you land on a song like Runnin' or the one I played today, you like, you know that that's one to keep.
Yeah.
Right. And you also know like that the song I played today, Hard Road, I actually think I sang a lyric incorrectly in the second verse, but it's one that I've been like vacillating
Tweaking.
on which one to use. And it's either the word highway or the word yellow lines. And I think I've landed on yellow lines, but today I remember singing highway. And so it's these little things that you're like, as a songwriter, you just go back and forth and you're like, neither one is bad, but one of them evokes something a little deeper than the other.
Yeah.
And so
it takes working through it though.
it does,
and
but you have to
live too.
exactly. And you notice you're like, oh, dang.
Wait, maybe that is the right answer, you know?
Yeah.
However it comes out sometimes is the right way.
Yeah.
At the time.
At the time.
I look at that too. Last question.
Ooh.
How has teaching shaped or deepened your own artistry?
Oh, that's a really deep question.
It's very deep.
So I had a moment after my first year teaching songwriting at Berkeley where I sat down at the end of the school year and I was just really quiet and I was like, wow, what do I do now?
Mm-hmm.
Because I'd gotten to the point where like, like students drove me to like be able to teach here, right? To be able to teach at Berkeley, to be able to write songs that like someone would think I was good enough to teach these kinds of like they have driven me like for decades,
There
right?
you reached the top of the mountain.
But now you reach it and you're like, well, now what? You know, what's driving me? And it's like, and my students still do, but there was this other part of me that's like, oh, well, you can let that go now and just like keep doing, you know, and not have them not push me because they still do. Like I'm still working on the production piece of my skill set, you know, and it's slow because I don't have time, right? My friend Mike Ericos has this great song. It's called Money, Time, or Peace of Mind. And the line is, you can only have two, right?
Pick two.
You got to choose two.
We
Because
got to live. We got to pay the bills.
yeah. And so, yeah, I think they always drive me. They make me be a better human. They make me think about why and what I'm doing, how I'm doing it, that like, I want to show up for them, or I want to show them that I'm showing up for myself in the way that I'm expecting them to show up for me and for them. So yeah, what about you? Do you feel the same?
Oh my gosh. I've only been teaching songwriting now for 3 years, but I've been teaching guitar since the 90s.
Yeah.
And I'm just there isn't a lesson or a class that I don't come away from going, I never would have thought of that. Do you know?
Yeah.
I mean, and it informs me. Teaching a concept deepens it for myself. Yeah. It's just a give and a take. It's always filling my cup.
I think
That's
so too.
how I look at it too. So
yeah,
I love that part of it, and it just took me so long to get my degree and actually pursue this as my career, but it was the best thing I ever did.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love my degrees and I love teaching, but I also love performing. I guess I thought I'd have to do one or the other.
I think a lot of people think that. And
Yeah,
I try to like, even in all the classes that I teach, I try to share that like, if you want to teach, if it's kind of if you're curious about it, like try it, you know, and if you don't want to, please don't, and go somewhere else and do something different. Like, you know, work at Starbucks or work a retail job, but don't like be that teacher, you know, that like we've all had that ruined things for somebody or like made them feel terrible and like because they couldn't deal with their own issues. I'm like, no, if you want to, like
their own whatever.
I know, because
so
it's such
sad.
an empowering thing. You become such a better musician, like I'm teaching business of songwriting and like
That's a big one.
it's a huge class and I love teaching it. I thought I would like it. I love that class. And I'm like, wow, I love teaching business classes. Like, this is crazy. But I know it's because I had to learn all this information that I'm sharing with them completely on my own.
So you're probably like, and now
I know.
we're doing this.
I'm like, oh my God, we're going to learn about taxes today, which is what we did last week. And they were like, Kat. And I was like, oh, you're going to love me in like 3 years.
They're going to be like, I'm putting that into use.
Yeah.
I love it.
So
Cool.
yeah.
Well, it has been an absolute joy and honor
Same,
to have you.
So cool.
Trading Tunes, and this is episode 2.
Yay.
Thanks for joining us. Okay, Kat, you want to tell us a little about your song?
Sure. It's called Hard Road, and I actually wrote it because a friend of mine sent me this chord progression on a text, and he was like, "Yo, Kat, this is really cool. You should write a song over it." And I was like, "Okay," which is actually how I learned how to play the guitar, incidentally. No, that would be funny. But through like just learning different things and then writing songs. Mm-hmm. And this idea that like we're all working really hard, and it can feel like we're never getting anywhere, but recognizing that like the work is actually the journey. Mm-hmm. So that's what it's called. I remember the first time I thought I was pretty, staring at my reflection in a scratched up subway window. Shorter hair, just as much spunk. I thought I'd become so much more than a punk, but I've gone gray and I'm still staring at the same old mirror. 'Cause it's a hard road when you wanna reach the top. It's a hard road when your drive is all you got, and there's never enough time to look around and see that the hard road is the real journey. 20 years of living in the city that never sleeps. I've seen more than most, and I've been broken, but I've never given up. One step at a time again. Maybe this climb will be the one where I win, but I've got faith, and I'm still staring at an Escher sketch. 'Cause it's a hard road when you wanna reach the top. It's a hard road when your drive is all you got, and there's never enough time to look around and see that the hard road is the real journey. Well, maybe I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, and every highway that I've traveled led me to become the woman staring back from the number one. 'Cause it's a hard road when you wanna reach the top. It's a hard road when your drive is all you got, and there's never enough time to look around and see that the hard road is the real journey. Yeah, the hard road is the real journey.
Yay! Oh my goodness.
Thanks.
So lush.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Filled with imagery. I
Yeah.
love that.
I
was
actually
on
wrote,
your
I
journey.
remembered as I was playing it that I was like, oh yeah, I wrote all these lyrics on the subway, like literally on the train. And
You could almost feel that in the chord progression, that descending chord
yeah, it was sort of like they found each other, you know? It was
Yes,
like,
I
yeah.
love it. You didn't have your guitar with you?
No. I just had my phone.
So you were just taking lyrics.
Yeah, and I looked at the subway, like, so in New York, there's like, you know, the subway cars have like windows and you can kind of see your reflection. And I literally had a visceral memory of me being like 19. I had like a bob and different hair, right? And I had looked at myself in the subway mirror and I was like, wow, I'm kind of pretty. Maybe somebody would want to like date me, right? Because like I had zero luck with like that kind of a thing in my life. And then the rest of the song just kind of like fell out from there. I think I wrote it, I'm like on 125th and Broadway and I was going to Columbus Circle. That's how long it took. Like I literally wrote all of the lyrics.
That ride from there to there.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Kind of crazy.
What an amazing transformation from discovering that you're dateable, like discovering that you're worthy.
I know,
right?
yeah.
And then it's the same thing with our journey.
Yeah.
We're on the journey.
Are.
That's the part of the life that's worth living.
It is.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, my favorite line is actually the line about Escher sketch, you know, the like Escher has these drawings where
you're
just like, you can
anywhere.
never, right. And I just like, oh, that's exactly how I want to say that. You know, it's just like you find your own fun, I think.
But it's not like a rat race or anything. It's just having peace in
that's the art, right? And that's the journey.
We might just be going around in circles, but that's okay.
It is. And it's really powerful and empowering, I think.
That's what I felt. I felt there was this sort of 70s folk sensibility in it as well. I was feeling that, but just a joy to listen to.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
What are you going to play?
I'm going to play a song called Tabitha, and John Finn, my husband, is going to join me. Okay. All right. So this song is called Tabitha. I wrote it with Lauren Mayer and April Keesing. And Lauren came to us and told us that she'd love to write a song after a woman's name. So after we decided that would be the focus, we had to choose some names. And we all settled on Tabitha because it's kind of witchy. Bewitched. Right. So you'll hear in the lyrics transfixed, magical, things like that.
Cool.
Conjuring, magical things. All right, so this is for Tabitha. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Tabitha, you talk to me, winding words and melodies, conjuring sweet memories. If you only knew the way the stars arranged to spell your
It's so cool.
Thank
I
you.
love the hook, da 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 da, or the secondary hook, but it's great.
Does it feel Celtic?
It does feel Celtic, yeah, but sort of like
Mystical.
modern Celtic meets country.
Celtic
Almost.
meets country. Okay.
Yeah, I hear that, and I really love the Tabitha. It's like it suits the name perfectly, and the prosody of that is just like super super epic.
We're celebrating her.
Yeah, I think
in
so
a way.
too. It feels like it could be like a little kid, but it feels more like an aunt or a great grandmother or a grandmother. Like you're just like reminiscing about this person or something. I don't know.
Someone left a legacy.
Yeah,
maybe.
exactly.
It's almost like this person is so magical, but they don't know it.
Yeah,
I think that's another thing that we wanted to
and
vibe on.
I think so too. And I think so choosing Tabitha, which we don't hear much these days.
Yeah, it must be an older.
Name, but it also feels like because of that, I'm substituting my own name for that in a way because it's not a name that I know anyone in, and so I can put like whoever I want to in that space, which I think is a really powerful thing about songs is when we can put our own memory or whoever that is into that space, and it still evokes that feeling even though you're singing a different name than the one that I'm thinking of
Yeah,
in my
exactly.
head.
Because if I'm talking about the kitchen window,
Right.
looking out, you're going to picture your
Mine,
kitchen
right?
window, and I would be thinking of mine. And whoever's here is going to
and just
create
because
their
you
own
the
pictures.
choice of Tabitha, which is kind of old, but it's also being used today. But I don't know anybody. From
I don't
that,
either.
You know?
That
And
was
so
the
like
thing, too.
then it's like the kitchen window where I'm not having to think. Like if it's like John, I'm like, God, I know so many Johns, and some of them, you know, are great, and some of them are not great, you know. Or I know a Jack, or like, there's so many people that like we associate names with, and I think it's really cool that
Maybe that's
isn't
even
a thing.
better, is that it's somebody who could be mysterious. But I feel like we all have a person in our life that we look up to,
Yeah,
that leaves a trace when they
Yeah.
leave, you know.
I think so too, and I think you captured that beautifully.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, and
Thank
like
you
the
so much.
trace is like the da 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 da, like that little line.
It's
like
something that
they've
lingers
left it
from her
behind. Yeah,
spirit.
exactly, that you remember. It's
lingers around.
brilliant.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so cool.
So Lauren put it on her album, if anybody wants to check
Amazing.
it out. She went with strings and all, a big arrangement.
Wow.
So beautiful. And of course harmonies. You can imagine the harmonies.
Yeah,
the
yeah, on the-
arpeggio
yeah.
in the melody. But
So cool.
right. So thank you.
Yeah, yay.
Do you want to jam on your thing? Should we play your song? Your other
We
song?
don't have to. Do we want to?
It was fun.
I want to.
Okay.
I want to.
Well, then let's like work out. So the solo part. So there's the bridge, right? How long do we stay when you know you don't belong? No one wants to hear my voice. Tell them it's gonna be okay. Never been enough for the other anyway. Like a solo there, like over that chorus changes. It was at like once and then coming back in
Okay.
at the chorus.
All right.
You want to try it?
So we've never
Just,
done this before.
Just eyebrow me.
Okay.
With, yeah.
Hey, hey. But you say stay. That's it. Yeah.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Sweet. All right. Here we go. This is called Stay in the Hard. I was inspired by Isabeau, actually. She posted this thing on Instagram about talking to her students about staying in the hard, and I was like, man, I always feel like I'm in the hard. So this is sort of like the sister song to the other song I played. Like I
Right.
think of them that
The
way,
journey.
even though, yeah, I've
heart
written
and the
them like
journey.
2 years apart or whatever, but it's kind of funny how they kind of connect.
Part 1 and part 2.
Yeah. Every day I wake up tired and dig deep down to find the energy to wear a smile when all I wanna me.
Yeah, that was
Super
cool.
fun. We got the ending that time.
Yes. Beautiful.
Sweet.
All right.
So fun.
Thank you for doing that.
Thanks, that was beautiful.
What a cool tune.
Thank you.
It was a great feel, you know, and again, we were talking about earlier about the whole thing of open tunings and playfulness, and
Yeah.
you know, you've got that you've got that in spades in that tune.
Thanks.
Really.
It's really fun.
Yeah.
When you're going through the hard, you don't really want to embrace it. But then when you see the benefit
Yeah,
in your
exactly.
life and how you end up, you were able to harvest.
Yeah, and
that hard stuff.
I find some, like, with a lot of stuff that I write, I tend to, like, I go through the song and then it's like, it's gonna be fine. And with this one, it was like, I wanted to just, like, have it be like you're just stuck there. But the music feels like you're moving
It
somewhere,
definitely
you know?
is moving.
And so
It's like
this,
got this pushing.
this idea that you're pushing against the idea that the song is, but the song doesn't have a resolution. It's just like, I'm staying here, you know, and it's
like
hard.
when you're in the rapids.
Yeah,
It's just pushing
exactly.
you along.
Yeah.
But you kind of are, you know, when your boat gets stuck on the rocks a little
Yeah,
bit.
exactly.
And that wraps up another episode of Trading Tunes, this time with the brilliant Kat Reinhert. Huge thanks to Kat for sharing her artistry, her insight, and her music. It's conversations like this that remind me why we write songs in the first place. To make sense of the mess, to tell the truth, and to connect with each other, one lyric at a time. If you loved what you heard, be sure to check out Kat's music and her teaching. Links are in the description. And if you're feeling inspired, go write something, even if it's just a line, even if it's just for you. Thanks for hanging out with us. Until next time, keep writing, keep playing, and keep trading those tunes.